Hello everyone, Forest Focus. We're heading to perhaps the busiest period of the season for Nottingham Forest. There's a Europa League game on Thursday, transfer deadline day on Monday, and the small matter of the Premier League relegation battle resuming on Sunday against our new arch rivals. So joining me to discuss all that and more, first of all, great to welcome Michael Temple. Temps, evening, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. I like any kind of rivalry which you solve by signing their best striker. I can subscribe to that.
Well, yeah, it really adds fuel to the fire when we talk about Crystal Palace and Mateta here, obviously, which we'll get into. So, yeah, looking forward to discussing that. Looking forward to discussing it with Seb Hutchinson. How are you this evening, Seb?
I'm good, Matt. Thanks for having me on. It's just time just keeps going, doesn't it? And things keep changing. The narrative keeps changing. You're dragging other teams into this battle, aren't you?
Well, hopefully. That was partly why I wanted to get you on. It's a good starting point. You did our game against Brentford on Sunday, a great win for us. Then you were up in Liverpool last night to see Everton's game against Leeds, who are in the mix. You've seen a lot of West Ham and the other teams as well, obviously. How are you viewing the relegation battle now, Seb, after this weekend with our gap at 5 points back to West Ham?
Well, how do we approach this now? I think I genuinely, we were discussed this with a few people over the weekend, but Burnley are giving it a go. I think they're giving it a go. They're picking up points here and there, and they would have to go on an incredible run to catch everybody else up. But I think we're entering the stage now where, rather than the worry being from a Forest point of view about West Ham, it is about how many teams can you drag into this situation. Leeds have been on a good run, but ultimately they're only a point ahead of Forest. And then you have Palace, who are sinking like a stone. Bournemouth have picked up some big results in recent weeks after you thought they might be in trouble. But the thing about Bournemouth is, I did them against Brighton. Their squad feels so thin. And every game they play now, you feel like they're going to be gassed out 60, 70 minutes in. Weirdly, with the Liverpool game, they had another level to go to. That's probably the inner motivation considering the opposition. But I wouldn't discount Bournemouth being dragged into it. That's probably about as high as you'd go, because I think Sunderland will
pick up Spurs,
which they need. Well, no, Spurs are below Bournemouth. That's what I'm saying. So we have Bournemouth at the top of it. Tottenham is an interesting one. Their fixtures are nasty. And when you look at it, you think, will their players raise their game for those fixtures? That's a very strong possibility they could do. Palace, at the same time, though, have two very winnable home fixtures on paper, but they could also be real tense games for that club. Because right now, Palace fans will know that they've been through the ups and downs over the years, and they understand that good players go. But for so much to happen in a short space of time, it is difficult and tough for them to take. And I'm sure your heart bleeds.
Yeah, certainly. We'll talk about Mateta in a couple of minutes. Before I go to you, Temps, I'll just put the table up. People sort of know it, but Palace have got 28 points. They shouldn't need that many more wins, but they're only 3 points ahead of us, obviously. West Ham on 20. Seb referenced the fixtures there. This is the fixture list for the teams. I think it goes from Spurs down. It doesn't have Bournemouth on it, but you can see on screen there. This is from the FPL gradings. Our fixtures, I think, are slightly better than that, personally. I wouldn't even have Liverpool as a red fixture in some ways at home. Spurs, very difficult. Palace do have those Burnley and Wolves home games that there's going to have a lot on them, especially if they don't get results in the next two. One obviously being against us. How are you feeling about it all?
First of all, let's demoralise Palace and just put pressure on them by beating them, which I think we're in a good position to do. If there's a fifth column of this, Leeds go to Man City after those four. So their run of fixtures is particularly hard. And that's why the bookies, who are rarely wrong, have Leeds at shorter odd than Forest to be relegated. So this run of three fixtures now, Palace at home, Leeds away, Wolves at home, feels like a gold-plated opportunity for us to drag other teams into the conversation, as Seb described, but also just to motor away from West Ham, Burnley and Wolves. I still think the bottom three is the bottom three. I was at Everton, Leeds last night as well. Each team had a better half, but they were... Why not? Both teams still have significant problems to solve. I think Everton looked particularly weak down the right hand side. Leeds weren't taking their chances and looked fragile in possession at times. And looking at these sets of fixtures as Matt's laid them out in this graphic, I can't help but feel that come the end of the Wolves game, if we haven't improved our position, improved the number of points between us and the drop, then we'll feel really, really disappointed, because this is a golden opportunity for us to put meaningful daylight between us and the bottom three. And given that the fixtures that our opponents in the relegation battle have in the same period, I think we'll be in a far better position in 3 match days' time.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, Seb? Like the season doesn't rest on 3 games, obviously, but 3 good results, 7 points would put us on 32 points. You feel very confident then. 3 bad results and all the talk about Dyche, which we'll touch on, and relegation worries are really, really heightened again. I mean, how important are they, these 3 games, do you think?
Well, it's so tricky, isn't it? Because we can say they're important. You could win all 3, but who knows? What about if West Ham, win their next 3 and you're still where you were? I feel at the moment, if from a Forest point of view, you are looking at, can we just make some of these teams feel tetchy? Just get them in the mix with us, because then we're not so concerned with West Ham's situation. I think this weekend, Spurs facing Manchester City. Now, Manchester City are in a position now where they have the bit between their teeth. They're thinking the opening's back there for us to close on Arsenal. Arsenal will go to Leeds. Leeds are a side who are a physical side. They're a side that play with a lot of confidence. Will they make it a tough night at Ellen Road for Arsenal? Will it be one of those games where you can see them picking up something from there? Because if they don't, Forest could be above them by the end of the weekend. And then you are very much in the mode of, okay, now we're dragging teams in. By the goal difference is so inferior with Forest and Palace at the moment. I don't think you can go above them. But I mean, it'll take a mighty win. It might take the Brighton sort of result again. But if you can get level with Palace again, I'm starting to think, will Palace pick up more points than Forest by the end of the season, the way they're going? I'm not too sure. If they lose Mateta, funnily enough, to yourselves, you're then looking at their team and you really do worry for it. Wharton got sent off at the weekend. He's going to be a young player now who's going to have his head turned massively. The manager may be throwing in the towel as we speak, pretty much. Who knows if you beat them heavily, he could be gone. He could be walking out the door. He could be pushed out the door early. And people have said that Palace don't want to get rid of him because of the money. But then think about the money you lose every time you drop a place in the Premier League. That's when I think it's a bit like Amorim, really. It was the same sort of situation. Manchester United thought, well, actually, we might be going backwards again. So I'm looking at the fixtures list that you put up, and you do have to take each game as it comes. I hate saying it, you do. But rather than thinking from a Forest, I'm sure we're going to get onto the game against Brentford, and there's good and bad and how they're playing under Dyche. But you're in a zone now, a couple of weeks on from just before that West Ham game, where rather than it was all about these are the 2 that are trying to make sure that they stay up and Leeds are on a good run, you're now in a position where you have Leeds, Palace, Spurs. You could be, I'm just trying to think now, you could be, let me work this out, could be 2 points behind Bournemouth by the end of the weekend. What a place that is to be. All of a sudden now you're then thinking, right, can we push on? And then the other advantage is the fixtures there. I like the way they've put Forest in green for Leeds, as if that's going to be, an easy match for them. I think it's anything but that's going to be a fascinating night. I mean, Leeds will be coming off that Arsenal game as well, depending on how they played in that. If they lose that game and you've won again, the way Leeds supporters are, a bit like Everton were last night, these are big clubs who just always expect more. It doesn't matter where they are. And that can really play on the players. They can feel that atmosphere. They can feel that pressure of expectation. So again, whereas, with Brentford, you went 1-0 up. And it's not, the crowd didn't turn against the players in the G-Tech. but they will at Ellen Road. So it could be, who knows, another Sean Dyche masterclass, jumping ahead a few games.
Just one more on this one, Temps, before we move on. The psychology of it's really interesting, I think, for the playing squads as much as anything. Say, let's be positive and say we do get results. Like our group can think, oh, can we target the Europa League a bit more? Can we dream of that? If other teams get bad results, you look at Spurs. Are those players going to fancy a genuine relegation battle? Are Leeds players going to believe in themselves as a promoted team if they really get sucked into it? And then Palace as well. I mean, they were top 6 weeks ago, it felt like. Are they, with everything falling apart there, are they going to believe into it? So the psychological swings on these games, it feels big without trying to build them up too much again, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Palace fans are the ones with most cause for concern, because the discourse coming out of there is a manager, as Seb said, who's frustrated, feels that he's going to war with a penknife, and is potentially about to lose his firepower as well. So that they're the perfect team for us to play at this moment in time. I think when you find yourself down and out like that, and then Wharton gets suspended, and just what positives can you draw as a Palace fan at this moment in time? We're coming off the back of a really encouraging Premier League performance. We're about to play a team in rotten form, and yeah, just that immediate narrative, that win in the last game will make the Forest players feel better than they did 24 hours earlier. So if psychology is a factor in this game at the weekend, I think it favours us. I'll always remember Morgs' rallying cry before the Man United game, look in their eyes, they don't want it, lads, and then they went out and dominated that fixture. I feel like we've got the opportunity to impose ourselves on Palace now. They're not a team that we need to take. We need to overtly set up to counter what they do. I think it's a game we can impose our style upon, get on the front foot at home, make a positive start, and try and grind them into the ground. I really think this is a game that can engender confidence for players, supporters, and manager alike.
Just reflecting on Brentford a bit, Seb. We had this discussion on I can't remember where it was. Yeah, yesterday I can't remember, with Pete and Franz Carr. There was a lot of people who viewed the performance differently in the Forest fan base. That some felt we were lucky, didn't think we played well. I was watching the game you were commentating on, and friends of mine who are neutrals are saying, "Oh, Forest are pretty solid here. Brentford aren't offering too much." I was watching it thinking, Christ, this is a siege. I'm really nervous. So talking about psychology again, as a neutral who obviously commentated on the game, what did you actually make of our performance? Because I thought we did play well, to be honest, for the most part.
It's funny, sometimes I go on a run with certain teams, and I wasn't actually supposed to be doing that game this weekend. I was supposed to be at St. James's Park. But then I was there was a Serena Wiegmann tribute night that I was invited to. So they swapped my games around so I could make that in the evening, pretty much. And so therefore I was in the mode of thinking, right, okay, let's get my head in the game the week coming into the match. And I was thinking about this one. And I really thought it was going to be a hard match to call. Because what happens is, and I think we saw a bit of this last night, a team like Brentford are having a fantastic season. When they're in a position where it's like, if we win this, we are now Champions League. We're in the Champions League race. We're in this mix. And you can feel in the ground. It didn't take long because of the way the game started for them to feel that they dropped back down to a reality and thinking, oh, actually, do you know what? Actually, maybe, do we want this? Do we want to be the heady thing of Europe when we see what teams like it's happening to teams like Palace and to an extent Forest, where they're going into Europe and it's stretching the squad and you're starting to have that balance of what games to play, who to play in what games. So I think some Brentford fans, I don't think they would have come away from that really disappointed per se. I don't think they're thinking, oh my gosh, we were terrible and they're after the team. I think it's just an off day. But I found with the match was interesting. The way it started, I actually thought Brentford came out strongly. I thought Sharda looked sharp. But Forest played with a confidence. They played with a freedom. It reminded me again of the reverse fixture. That thing of popping the ball around. Gibbs White looked really sharp. He's trying to constantly do one-touch football. And when he's like that, Anderson buys into it. Hudson-Odoi's more comfortable. And Igor Jesus' finish was excellent. The moment Forest went 1-0 up, it was like Sean Dyche took out his key and he put it into the lock and he turned it and he went, lads, we are not doing this anymore now. We're now going to play this way. And there's different ways of looking at it. His experiences, he knows that when you're away from home, you are very unlikely to dominate the whole of a game. And that can apply to anybody, really. You're very unlikely. Think of Leeds last night. They were so good in that first half that they were never going to keep that up for the entire 90 minutes because there's always a swing. The home team always has to, at some point, puts that extra energy in, takes some risks. So when that happens, you as the away side, you think, are we going to go toe-to-toe with them? We have the advantage. Why should we push this out? So the game, from a Forest point of view, and an excitement in the way they were playing, I think once they went 1-0 up, a couple of minutes after that, they looked positive. But it was just... Sean Dyche is one of the most fascinating managers to watch on the touchline when you get a moment. He spends so much of the game making sure that players are where he wants them to be. And poor Hudson-Odoi, I just felt it was a ticking clock to when he was going to be taken off the moment they went 1-0 up. It just felt it's not his game. He's not really a player who wants to be having to track people back and cover. And it's not, he wants to be a front foot player. He's a player who's come through at Chelsea. He was in a dominant England youth side. He was playing for England as a teenager. This is a player who's used to his team having possession, being on the front foot, seeing a lot of the ball. And in a team like this, it just doesn't work for him. So it's going to be interesting how often, if he does, as soon as Forest go 1-0 up, if they're in a game, the 1-0 up against, even at home, he's going to be the players that's going to come off. And, I don't want to go into every minute of this game, but I did think that was a thing that really stood out to me, is which players buy into how Dyche wants to play and which players don't. And you can go through every player and make a case for all of them. There are some who probably love it, and there are a few, probably some of the more talented players, who are a bit like, this is a pain. Gibbs White is probably another one.
I feel like that's such an important point going into the summer temps of assuming we stay up, we've got to recruit players who want to come to. Morgan Gibbs White looking frustrated for 20 minutes. Elliot Anderson looking annoyed, not touching the ball. Callum Hudson-Odoi. Are players going to buy into this style long term? Does it matter if we're winning games, which is probably the other point I'll come on to? How do you view that balance of where we want to go as a football club?
Well, the debate around whether Sean's going to be there next season is a valid one. I think it should be put to bed for this season. Here's a guy that inherited an absolute bin fire, with Forest taking 5 points from 8 games, sacking Ange 20 minutes after a match. And since then, he has stabilised us. We're outside of the relegation zone. We've taken 20 points from 18. We're not tearing up trees, but we're not the relegation certainty that we looked like we were heading to be at one stage this season. Now, look, Sean's record in his time at Forest, it isn't glowing. He's picking up points at a rate which suggests 42, 43 point form over the course of a season. So I think it's valid to have that debate at the end of this one. And what will be on the mind of the football brains and the ownership at Forest is, can he get a tune out of this team, restore them to being a top 10 side, and unlock the best of those players you've just described, Matt? The ballers, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs White, Elliot Anderson, the players that we pay to see, and the players that get Seb into another octave on a Sunday afternoon. And that's the bit that I haven't seen in my own eyes. I've seen him restore our defensive solidity. I've seen Murillo and Milenkovic want to defend again. He's benefited from the restoration of Ola Reina to the starting 11. Nico Williams has been exemplary throughout this season somehow. How he's managed that, I'm not quite sure. But that's the big debating point for me. Do we feel that Sean Dyche can restore those attacking patterns which make us a genuinely potent attacking force in the Premier League? Because we've seen it in fits and starts. Tottenham was fantastic. Brentford was fantastic. It was the rearguard action at Arsenal that we were celebrating. To a point, it was the rearguard action that we were celebrating in those wins as well. It went a little bit under the radar because of the highlights near the penalty box. But I think that's a valid debate. And from what I've seen so far, I can't honestly answer the question if Sean is the best man to get a tune out of our attacking players. I hope he is, think he's a good man. I think he cares about the club. I think it was inevitable that he had an appointment with us at some stage in his career, and I really want it to work.
I suppose, Seb, there's two debates, aren't there, with Dyche? This season, I think he's actually got 20 points from 15 games, which is a good return. I think fans look at, you did Villa away, where I thought we were horrible. But then we're winning games. We're doing exactly what he was brought in to do. He's, he's delivering his mission, and he'll probably turn around to people who doubt him and say, well, what more do you want from me? So I suppose two questions. How do you judge the job he's done so far? And if he were to be here next season, playing the way he plays, I wonder what the ceiling of it is in terms of league position, and would he have to adapt? And I'll ask you a third: can he adapt?
What we need to know is who is in charge in terms of the type of player that comes in. When you look at the type of player that comes in the summer, maybe not now because there's a bit of let's just get the bodies in to cover positions. Not much time left, but by the summer, they're the transfers that clubs use to when they're showing you how they want to play as a team, or they're showing you we're going to have different options. Now, I thought Forest, when they signed lots of players for this season, I thought they were trying to give themselves options. That's what I thought, and maybe Nuno, wasn't a part of that, but they just thought, I'm going to give the manager just different ideas and different ways that he can play. And thinking of Edu when he was at Arsenal were quite slow to just get deals over the line, get the right player, and they were getting players in and improving the team, but pretty slowly. And look, when he's left, Berta's come in and he's just gone bang, 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 and they filled out their squad. They got the most deepest squad in the league, probably still missing the star player that they need to be. If they had a star player in the team, they'd be 20 points clear. But what Forest need is to have that focus and to just say, this is our plan. These are the players that are going to play for this club. And that will help, I think, the players that are there to feel that they want to stay there. Because I look at Gibbs White and Anderson. Anderson is likely to go to the World Cup, right? He's going to go to the World Cup. Now, if England do well in that World Cup and he's in that starting team, it puts immense pressure on the club then to say,
he's going to go, isn't he? He's going to go in the summer.
Yeah, but if he's hanging out his proverbial by the end of the campaign, and he has a really miserable World Cup, and he's taken off early in the first game, and we never see him again, and Wharton finishes off the tournament, it changes then, because maybe the offers won't be there. Like football, things change so quickly in a short space of time. But the players and individuals still think, do you know, actually, I'm loved at Forest and blah, blah, blah. But the point I'm trying to say is, when the way Sean Dyche plays, he plays to win football matches, and he will adapt to the game state. He's not out there to impose a philosophy to say, this is how we play at this club. He is just there. Very much we say old school. I don't even think it's an old school sense. It's just sort of football fundamentals when you don't have the tools at your disposal. And he's always been at clubs that haven't been able to spend serious money and go chasing after fantasy players. They have to always be sensible. That was the case for Everton when he took over after what they'd splurged. So he's weirdly in that position with Forest now, because they spent a bit of money. So now he has to wait to build a team again. And then he will go for players that he knows are, it's a simple point to make, but if you were to use somebody like a Connor Cody, or, like it was a typical pro, solid pro, but whatever you want to call it, because he needs those voices on the pitch, and he's going to be looking at the Forest team. Who are the players who transmit my message perfectly onto the pitch and play through it? Now, he's probably looking at his squad and thinking there aren't many per se who are people that I know that well, but I will try and make that work. Will he get that chance? This is the question. We won't know the answer to that till the summer, unfortunately, because I think if he keeps Forest up, he's not going to get sacked. But he might get sacked if we then find out Forest are linked to certain group of players. Maybe they have a project where they're picking up Brazilians. Maybe they have the project where they're going to focus on the Portuguese market, whatever it is. And then they might go, right, okay, we're now going to bring in a manager for that and tie it in. They're separate things. It's so weird to say it. It's just so separate nowadays. It's not really about what Dyche believes or thinks. This is why we have managers go out and do these press conferences all the time. Half the questions they cannot answer. They have no control over that. Even Pep Guardiola goes into press conferences, and they're asking questions that he knows nothing about. He has no control, and he's the most successful manager in English football. So that's the issue that he has. All he knows is, I just pick up results. I go into a game thinking, if we get the advantage, we'll lock things down. And with Arsenal, the advantage was 0-0. That was the advantage. That was the state of the game. As the game wore on and it's going on, he knows that Arsenal are going to be chasing it, so he'll just drop back. That's probably how he thought about the Villa game. He thought Villa are going to try and come out of the blocks quickly, so we have to be really strong, get behind the ball, sit deep and hold them out. Brentford, they played a bit, got 1-0 up, stopped. I think no more mistakes, because you can look how many goals are scored in the Premier League. Most of the time, it's because of a mistake. Somebody's made a mistake, somebody switched off. And to score wonder goals, actually quite hard to score a wonder goal when a team has lots of bodies behind the ball. It's pretty difficult because the game's not broken enough. And he knows all this stuff. It's just so not pretty for fans. It's not pleasant to watch it. It's nervy. It's tense. You're winning a game, but you're not enjoying it. You're basically just waiting till the final whistle. But what was amazing, just to wrap up on that game, was if you just looked at it, you hadn't seen a frame of the game, and you just looked at it and thought, oh, Forest won 2-0, clean sheet, 2 under fire strikers scored, and I've just seen the highlights. There were 2 really good goals. What are you guys moaning about? But supporters, they're beyond the highlights. They're into the thick of it, and I can understand that balance, getting that balance right.
I think that's a big, God, we could do the whole hour on this. We're going to move on to transfer shortly. Just one more on it, Temps, just quickly. As a statement from me, that Edu-Dyche relationship is really important. If they're both sticking around, they need to be on the same page. What Seb says there about turning the key and shutting games down, over 38 games when you start on 0 points, and I think this was a frustration of Everton fans, the handbrake being on, are Forest fans going to look at the attacking Arsenal that we have, or we think we have, that's so good, and think, this isn't for me? And that puts pressure on him, because if you're not winning those games when you go 1-0 up, then the pressure and the narrative changes, doesn't it?
Well, first of all, apologies for my sloppy maths, because it is 20 points from 15, and that's more like 50-point form, which extrapolated over the season. So far more impact than I gave him credit for. Look, the fans don't enjoy pragmatic managers generally. For everything that David Moyes achieved at West Ham, he never got the respect that he deserved. And others have gone in there before and after him and not achieved those levels. It's not attacking football. It's not particularly nice to watch like West Ham side now, but it was successful, and it enabled them to have that run in Europe and to be far clear of the position that they find themselves in now. And I think that there are times when you look for the continental manager with the flair and the belief and the attacking philosophy, and there's times when you call for Dyche, and he's not being parachuted into situations where a team is just falling out of the Europa League places. He's called in situations where there is an immediate threat of relegation, and there's a need to bring the stability that's going to get them out of there. I don't think Edu has had a Sean Dyche poster on his wall for the past 5-6 years. He was the man for that situation, and to his eternal credit, he's done exactly what we needed him to do. He steered us at this point clear of immediate relegation danger. I don't know. Like, is any football fan going to be satisfied with trying to win 1-0? We're spoiled a little bit off the back of the season we've just had, where we exceeded everybody's expectation. Everything we touched turned to gold. Everything Chris Wood touched turned to gold, and we've seen the fragility of that laid bare this year. But I'm sorry to repeat my previous answer. I think Sean's done a really good job with the tools that he's got, but the reality is at our club that once we're safe, focus will shift to next season, ambition will change. And I wonder if the footballing philosophies and the recruitment strategies of Edu and Sean Dyche are ever going to align. They don't feel like a natural marriage.
And the ambitions of the owner. Ambitions are always a big word as well. So, yeah.
I mean, do you mind? I wanted to ask you guys, when you think of, can you name me 3 players who you think buy into Dyche's way of playing and actively enjoy it or feel comfortable playing like that? of the Forest squad. Even obviously, like Ryan Yates is an obvious example, but who else? Who else do you feel likes playing this way? They play this way because the manager tells them to, and obviously there's certain, it's the centre halves sometimes centre halves love defending their own box most of the time anyway. But who else do you think buys into it? Maybe Williams. Maybe Williams. He'll again, somebody's come through the system.
Milenkovic and Williams, I think. Yeah.
It's the honest pros that are maybe slightly more limited as footballers, but take pride in delivering a rigid system again and again and again and again. Ji-Sung Park did it at Man United, right? He was there because he carried out orders to the letter. I put Milenkovic, Dominguez in that kind of bracket. But that there are shackles on Morgan, Elliott, and Callum at times.
I don't know if Sangare enjoys it, but Sangare has probably got a flourish to his best Forest form under Dyche, I would say.
And I'd like to think Awani would be. He would buy into that because maybe Dyche can give him confidence and make him feel, use his strengths literally and try to get something, squeeze more out of him if they can. He might be one with a potential now, and obviously his goal was magnificent, wasn't it? I guess considering the situation.
I wonder if Igor Jesus enjoys it. He's playing a lot. He's getting absolutely battered by centre halves every single game, so I can't imagine he does. But he's getting Premier League minutes, so yeah. Interesting. Right, we should talk about strikers. One who might sign it, Forest the Europa League, and then that I think would end any Dyche debate if we're in the Champions League. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Right, before that though, next game at Forest at the Trent Nav as well. Ferencváros obviously on Thursday night. If you're not going to the City Ground, you can watch it on the big screens there. And if you are going to City Ground, enjoy all the build-up. Obviously, Fothers with his pre-match quiz. Get your dinner there, barbecue, pizza, all the usual menu. 17 screens, indoors and outdoors, and you can watch it over the road as well at the new venue there. So thanks to those guys as ever. Right, let's go straight into transfers because that was a really good discussion. It was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Seb, what do you make of this Jean-Philippe Mateta madness? One we didn't see coming, but looks like it could be genuine.
Yeah, I believe that Forest were after a striker most of this window anyway, so it's no surprise they're going after a striker. It was just going to be which one were they going to get, and I believe they were going to get one because I think when teams are actively looking, then agents get busy, they put the feelers out, and then things start to turn. And then really the final thing is whether the selling club goes, oh, all right then. And Palace at the moment, I think they're looking at it thinking we're going to have to somehow keep our head above the water before the season's out and start again with a new manager, a new system. They're a club that try and think like this, and that means just have to take the money when it's thrown. And I think it's probably 35 odd million is going to probably be an amount. It's probably going to be a bit more than that probably by the end. That's interesting. When I swing it and think if you're Palace, you probably just take it ultimately and just try and get yourself through to the end of the season. It is risky for them though, of course. Mateta's not been fantastic this season. He is a striker who tends to find himself in good positions a lot and does miss a lot of chances, but he's also a striker who can cause, on his day, can cause any defender an issue. He's just that sort of player, and it'll be interesting if he does come to Forest for sure, because he will feel, it won't feel like a massive departure for him from playing for Palace per se, but he will be a striker who you start to think when everybody's back fit again, or will everybody be fit at the same time? It's interesting that Forest will be in a position where they have 4 strikers on the books of varying degrees of fitness. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be the one to get the goals. But he is, to try and be positive with this, with any new signing, because you have to try and be positive with new signings, because why try and get them? Is that on his day, he is somebody who will score against anybody, cause anybody problems. I've seen him bully defenders for the top sides in the league routinely on season after season and score against them. But then he can be, I think it was earlier this season when he scored a hat-trick, And then his easiest chance of the game, he missed. He could have scored 4 goals. And the easiest one he couldn't take. So he's going to be games where you're going to be going, oh, my God, can't believe it. And then all of a sudden going, oh, my God, he's amazing. So, yeah, it's going to be, he'll be a fascinating signing. Who knows? It might be Palace do what they did with Gay at the start of the campaign and go, actually, oh, my God, we can't do this. But right now, it seems like it's going to happen.
I mean, I do think he's a genuinely good Premier League striker. He's got 8 goals this season, which I think is the 3rd or 4th highest, and he isn't even having a good season. So he does have that quality. 2 questions. I'm doing this a lot tonight. Does he fit when we talk about turning the key and you go 1-0 up? Is that his vibe? I don't know. So firstly that, and then secondly, I think Palace, part of the deal would be they want a replacement, and Strand Larsen's name comes up. Would Forest just be better bypassing that and buying the 25-year-old version of a sort of similar ilk to Mateta, who's also not having a good season? Their numbers are quite similar, and their styles, I think, are fairly similar. What would you do on that front?
Well, Mateta has more behind him, obviously being older, but he's not a veteran, Mateta, by any means. But he's got more behind him. He's got more for you to look at and say, I've seen him do this. With Strand Larsen, he had a little purple patch. I remember right at the start, I did a few Wolves games, and I thought, they've got a nice little gem here. And then they made his transfer permanent. But he's been poor, as so many Wolves players have during that poor run that they've had. They've been better recently. He was obviously keen to get out. I think for Forest point of view, I think you go for Mateta now and you take that risk, because these are the maverick players that so many sides, when they're trying to get out of trouble, these are the players that rescue them. You think of like a Di Canio figure, or just somebody who's going to come up with something special. I don't think Strand Larsen's that player. He's just another striker up front. You think, is he going to be the miles better than Igor Jesus? I'm not entirely sure. Whereas Mateta's been there. He's also used to being in a team that doesn't have a lot of the ball at times, if that's how Dyche is going to play. He's used to being just up front on his own and having to try and hold the ball up or run in behind. It sounds like a sensible signing. It's interesting that he wants to come to Forest, actually, which is another sign that Palace are really struggling. I think when I saw Gay go, because we were, a lot of people talk about this stuff, and he was in a fantastic position, Mark Gay. He could have waited to the summer and had the pick of anybody in European football. But he went to City. Obviously, money plays a part, but I actually think it is him wanting to get out of Palace as well, knowing the way it's going, and just thinking, what's the point in hanging on for months on end when I could go to City and maybe win a trophy or two? So that then made sense for him to go. And now Mateta's thinking, oh, I could, this is my chance to maybe get a big move, get a little bit of a bonus out of it, and maybe just get out of that environment. And that it could be a good time. I think it says one. More than Strand Larsen right now, I'd go. That's the one to go for. Mateta.
That is interesting, Temps, that he wants to come. I said there about, does the football suit him? I mean, let's face it, he's going to be very well immersed to come here if he does. But Palace fans are going to, well, he'll be public enemy number 1, I think, if he signs for us. But Palace fans are going to say it's a sideways move. Maybe even later. I don't agree with this at all. They say it's a downwards move. I actually think we're a bigger club and it's probably an upwards move overall. But they're going to say, why isn't Mateta going to Juventus and Villa, the clubs that were linked? So are you surprised in the sense that he wants to come here?
I don't think Palace fans will have any anger towards Mateta. I think they'll have anger towards the ownership, because their policy is to try and have a net transfer surplus in any given year to overcome the challenges they have with capacity, with Premier League wages. And look, they do extremely well. They have been an absolute fixture in the Premier League for a long period of time now, habitually finishing 12th, 13th, 14th, unearthing 12, yeah, specifically 12. Unearthing highly talented footballers. They've absolutely nailed the talent market in South London and produced players who are operating at the very, very top of the Premier League, but not with Palace. And that's their model. They sign players, they add value, or they develop players, add value, they ship them on. They cannot allow Mateta to leave for free in 18 months' time or 5 million in 12 months' time. They will always cash in their chips. So yeah, I think the anger from Palace fans shouldn't be diverted to the player. He's 28 years old and he plays up front for France. So I'm naturally excited that he wants to join Forest. We didn't give Chris Wood the best of welcomes, right? We thought he was a bit of a donkey, if I can use a lazy phrase, when he first arrived, and that was totally unfair. And he earned the respect of every Forest fan that watched him play. And I expect Mateta to do a similar thing. Profiles differently to Igor Jesus. Probably not such a back-to-goal player. He's not going to pull balls out the sky in quite the same way that he does, but likes to get in behind. Probably profiles far more similarly to Taiwo in his style of play and the way that he scores goals. Is it progress for him? Yes. We have assembled something like the 12th or 13th most valuable set of footballers on this planet, and we're having a really bad season. We are a money project. We're punching well below our weight in the Premier League this season. But the objective and the trajectory, certainly in the mind of ownership, is to get back in and around the kind of levels that we saw last season and to kick on again. So I can see why Mateta would be sold on that vision. I can see why he would divorce himself from the kind of an immediate view of where we find ourselves, just below Palace and in a very similar battle to the one they face in time. But I think our prospects are greater if things can be restarted, rekindled next season. But he's a player for now as well. He comes in match ready, battle ready. There's no way it's going to happen before the weekend, but it has to happen on Monday if it's going to happen at all. And our running will be all the better for having him on board.
We'll talk about other players, ins and outs, talking of battle ready and experience. Just quickly, I mean, I do think if we hadn't gone absolutely mental with managers, I don't think we'd be 17th. If Nuno hadn't hit the nuclear button or Edu hadn't fallen out with him or whatever, then I think we'd be, I don't know how high we'd be with Europe and everything that went around it, but we wouldn't be 17th, I don't think. Right, lots to get through in a short space of time, so I don't want to take the piss keeping these chaps too long. Douglas Luiz hasn't officially been announced yet, but every reporter in the world says he's going to Aston Villa. Interesting deal, Seb. Not really done what we hoped he would here for fitness reasons, stylistic reasons mostly. I think he's one who could go to Villa and do really well, I suppose, because he's going to get minutes there. What do you make of it?
It's no surprise that Zinchenko and Douglas Luiz were leaving this window. I just thought there's just no way. I mean, Zinchenko, for example, couldn't be further from being a Sean Dyche player if he tried, considering you've got effectively an attacking midfielder who's been playing left back for year after year, and it just was never going to work. And then Douglas Luiz, he is a player who, again, even though he often can play in a deeper midfield role, he is a player who likes to express himself further forward. He's a player who likes to try things. He has a good shot from range. He's got good corners. He's a technical player. Did he even complete 90 minutes for Forest? I'm just trying to think. Did he even complete a single 90
I don't
minutes?
think he did in the Premier League. I think he might have done in Europe.
I don't know. I just never remember. I always either see him coming on or coming off at some point in the game. He's just going to be.
That's not the sign of a successful stint at a club, by the way.
It's not at all. So I wouldn't say. I think there'd be a bit of a regret. It's such a shame it didn't work type thing. But now Sangare's back and Dominguez has had a good run in the team as well. He seems to be filling out that midfield. Anderson plays every minute under the sun. I don't think. There's a slight element of it what could have been, but I don't think it's going to be a departure that rocks Forest season or anything like that at all. He just didn't contribute enough. And you mentioned the fitness reasons. Obviously, we don't know the full details of that, but yeah, he just didn't. It's not a great loss from what he'd produced already.
No, so maximum in the Premier League was 76 minutes that he plays. Plays 16% of the minutes in the Premier League. Just your thoughts on it, Temps, in terms of, well, we also discussed the does he want to be here vibes. I got the impression the last couple of games he didn't. I could sense his frustration and sort of understand it when he's being bypassed, although I don't like to see players not necessarily putting their lot in if that's an unfair accusation. I don't know, but how do you feel about him going, Temps?
High quality player. He was high quality before he arrived. He'll be high quality after he leaves. He will impress us in games that we play against him. But there's no need for us to wonder about the ifs, buts, and maybes, because he's not compatible with where we find ourselves right now. He's not compatible with our system. He's probably not the type of honest pro that we describe that's going to chime with Sean Dyche and be a central pillar of his team. So, yeah, wish him no ill will. There was some magic touches from him in a Forest shirt. He'll kick on again, but he's not the right player for us for now.
He did play. He got to 85 minutes against Porto. There you go. Yeah, I said on the podcast yesterday as we record this, he's the player for what we want to be, not what we are. I think when they were trying to play possession-based stuff with bringing in him, Bakwa, all those guys, and it hasn't worked. And it's not the worst deal because we've got him off the wage bill. We haven't had to buy him for 25 million and pay him 150 grand a week or all that kind of stuff for 3 years. So not too much harm done, I would say. Into the potential ins, apart from Mateta, some fringe ones. Jose Sa, we're in talks with, Seb. Temps is shaking his head already. I called it. I think I put on a WhatsApp group. He's got trampoline wrists. Every time I see him, the ball bounces off him back into trouble. I mean, he's all right, and if he's going to be number 2 to Sells, then fine. But I hope he's not coming in to take his place. What would you do? How would you rate that transfer if we signed him?
I mean, goalkeeper transfers they're never that exciting, are they? Because you just think. It depends. If your current goalkeeper is really struggling, then you just want anybody through the door. Obviously, Manchester United had that situation, and then they signed a keeper that none of their supporters had heard of, and now they love him. So, Sa is a funny one. During his run, he's been at Wolves for a while, and he did have a run where he was almost having similar to like Sells' run with Forest. He was a keeper who was keeping them in games, and he was a solid man between the sticks. That suggests to me, I'm guessing that John Victor's issue is quite serious then.
Well, he's got 2 issues. One, he's not very reliable, and one, he's injured. So I think those are probably the 2 of them.
I always remember John Victor, that run of games he had. You could see every game he was playing for. Oh, maybe I'm good. Maybe I'm good. He's bouncing around. He's been like, hold on, I'm not in my goal. Oh dear. Okay. Well, now I've got an injury. Yeah. So it just felt like a. But I suppose he sums up sometimes in these situations when you're buying players from here, there, and everywhere, and obviously they're buying Brazilian players, but they're also buying expensive young English players at the same time and trying to. I reckon if you were sat down there as a club and thinking we're going to be a club that's going to progress, what do we need to do? And I think it's simple. They were thinking, let's get some talented Brazilians and some talented English players, and that will solve all our problems because we'll tick every box that we need in terms of where we're going. Not quite worked out as that would have gone. But Sa, goalkeepers, I think if they're signing a goalkeeper, there's clearly a reason why they just want to just get another senior pro through the door. And Sa's been in and out of the Wolves team. So, yeah, I don't think it's something to get too hung up about. If he comes in, he comes in. And goalkeepers, they're never really on high wages anyway compared to everybody else. So I don't think it's going to be too big an issue. And obviously, Gunn clearly not in this. I don't think he wants to see him on a pitch really at that point. So yeah, it's going to be not one to bother with. And who are some of the others you said you might be linked to? Because
Lewis Dunk I'm looking at the other one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because Dunk. If he came to Forest, I mean, is the expectation that he's then starting the games? So which of your centre halves are you then dropping?
Not. Is he just do you go?
Because he's starting for Brighton at the moment.
Exactly, so he's a 90-minute man every week. I don't think he'll change formation. So I mean, he's going to. The thing is, he's going to get a longer deal. He's going to get a 3-year deal potentially, and he might get. I don't know. He's going to get 10 grand a week more than he's on at Brighton, for example, something like that. I would say
he's a Sean Dyche player in mentality, but not in the way he plays, which is quite interesting. It's quite a cultured centre half, but with that solid pro head on him. I mean, if you look at Douglas Luiz and Zinchenko probably being the highest paid players at the club, whether I don't know what the terms of the deal was. In terms of how much Forest are paying, their salaries, etc. But they're both going to be players, probably the highest 2, and then who's after Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, who else would you sign? I don't think you're going to be. You've got probably group of players who are all under 100 grand, all getting paid under 100 grand. So that's the interesting thing. People get so caught up in transfer fees, but it's the wages that take teams to the next level. It's the wages that can cause clubs problems. So Forest do probably have room to maneuver in the wages department and to bring in a player. And so that's probably why they can probably offer a good contract to certain players to get them in. I wondered if they were trying to get into the mix for even on loan, probably loans unlikely, but the likes of Oscar Bob or I know maybe these players don't want to go and be in a relegation battle and they've got suitors elsewhere, but it just depends on the offer. It's if the offer was good enough, would you test the water for a player like that? Maybe he's thinking I can do better than that, but maybe I don't know with players. I think you just go to a club and you can kick your career on again if you feel like you're being pushed out, as Bob and Savinho are at City a little. So you've got to be ambitious. Even if you're down where you are, it's a couple of wins and all of a sudden knocking on the European places again. That's how condensed it is. That's how crazy it is. We could be talking in 2 months' time and Forest have put together an amazing 4-match winning run, and all of a sudden you're going, could we?
The others, there's a few names floating around. I saw players that fans would say, "Oh, why aren't we for them?" Oscar Bob, Omar Marmoush, John Duran. I see is another one that fans would say, "Oh, why aren't we in for them?" But just before I go to you, Tim, the other player we have been linked to, who I haven't really seen much of, is Mateus Oliveira, Napoli left back, Uruguay international. He's 28, and one possible outgoing. Just a reference for fans, Cuiabano. Definitely in the Chesterfield away, first game of the season bracket, never plays in the league. Potentially,
I've got to laugh at him. He's been, so the way I do my sort of notes and stuff, I've got like a little box for every player, and he's been a tiny little box that's been hidden away in a corner that I haven't touched for ages. And it's going to be, I don't think I've enlarged him at any point to be part of in my thinking at all. These players, they just, how do these deals happen? It's amazing.
I suspect you might never touch that box for Cuiabano because it looks like he might be going to Vasco da Gama, which fits the way we're doing business potentially in January temps. I was going to say to you, a lot of these players were linked with 28 years old, 34 years old. Sa's 33, which is kind of irrelevant for a keeper. Like Mateta, Oliveira is 28 years old. We're not looking for the 22-year-old Bakwa, the 23-year-old McAtee. It feels, again, maybe managerial. Dyche has gone out and said, these players aren't doing it for me in Europe, these young lads. If we're going to do anything in Europa League and stay in the Premier League, give me some experience, do you think?
Yeah, I see the logic of that. I think Lewis Dunk, 400 games for his hometown club. And just looking here, who can forget his loan spell at Bognor Regis Town in 2010 as well? He was exemplary throughout that little spell. But you can imagine Dyche calling for 2 good, honest pros to come in, be around that club, marshal that dressing room, but still have the ability to play. And Lewis Dunk and Jose Sa, you're not concerned at all if they're in your starting 11. And who knows who's on the way out? If Angus Gunn and Morato are going to be shipped, those two are very much players for now as well, right? Even as backup or as forcing their way in. I think it's going to be hard for us to sign any player across that back four who's going to be seen as a Premier League starter above the 4 players that we've got, despite results, because of what they were last season and what they've proved to be when those 4 take to the pitch at the same time. But you need backup. We've fought on 2 fronts this year. I haven't enjoyed the Europa League. I've travelled to Europe twice and seen pretty dour football. I've seen us turned over at home by relative minnows. It has been a distraction. The promise and the hype of what it was going to be was far more appealing than the reality. And now we find ourselves almost certainly about to embark on the playoff round in the Europa League. So yeah, look, I get it. I see the logic. I still back Matt Sells as my keeper, Milenkovic and Murillo as my centre halves. But if Dyche is doing his homework on the blend of person, of pro that he wants in and around that squad, there's logic in both of those signings.
Yeah, we can only make limited. I think you can make 3 changes to the Europa League squad.
Sorry to cut you off.
Go on, Seb.
Sorry, I was going to say, I just wanted to address earlier, talking about 4 strikers. I completely forgot about Luca. So
5, yeah. If Chris was
so if he's in as well, just say everybody gets fit. I mean, because 2 up top, it's on its way, isn't it? It's going to happen
It could be
before the end of the season.
Well, that's what I was saying. There's only 25 men in the Premier League squad. There's only 3 changes you can make in the Europa League squad. So it'll be interesting to see how much business we do. I think Morata could definitely go. I think Forest fans have probably had their fill of him, and maybe Dyche has. I don't know. Dyche seems to like him. I think he's not played Zach Abbott.
I think he's just solid rather than solid pro. I think he's just solid, isn't he?
Fans probably wouldn't say he is in some of these games.
I mean, literally like his body. Yeah, maybe not. Not performances. Yeah.
But if if you are chasing the Europa League and Murillo and Milenkovic can't play every game, then Lewis Dunk is better than Morato. So in the short term, Marinakis wants to win the Europa League. So Dunk would do it. I don't like him. I said this on the pod yesterday. I don't like a Dunk signing long term when you've got Cunha and Abbott and you want a pathway. But for 6 months to 18 months, or maybe not even 18 months, then it does fit. And he is a really good pro. And he is still a good footballer playing 90 minutes in a good Brighton team. So you can definitely see the merits of it. Seb, final words from you. Please tell me we're going to stay in the Premier League. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I've not said at any point I don't think you're going down. Even when I was doing games that you were losing. Now I'm doing a run games that you're winning, which is helpful. But yeah, I just don't see it. I don't know why. I just look at that team every time I see them. I think that's probably part of the frustration. You've touched on it. Often when you're looking at teams and they come up, or teams that you think might come down, you are generally just looking at the attitude of the players and the quality of the players, and are they buying in with the manager? And the talent is there for Forest. It is there. I'm starting to wonder if the talent's going to be there for Palace by the end. I mean, I've seen links with Wharton going as well, but I don't know. I just can't see it now. Who that third team is that gets dragged in? I said a few weeks ago that even though Leeds are on that run, I still feared for them a little bit because they are playing well, but do they ultimately have that quality when push comes to shove, when they're going to need that moment? And this is why I think Forest do have those players. You can envisage Gibbs White. We saw it with Igor Jesus. He's got it in his locker, right? Okay. We've seen that Hudson-Odoi curl shots into the top corner. Elliot Anderson could come up with something special. Even some of the players like Hutchinson and McAtee, particularly in McAtee's case, it's not happened for him. But who knows? He might come on in a game and come up with a little bit of technique that does it. And I just feel that Forest have too much talent to go down. What will be fascinating, though, is how many teams can be dragged into this scenario. Because I'm telling you, if Tottenham are dragged into that scenario, those players that they have are going to struggle. They're going to find it really, really difficult. And the 4 games they've got now coming up, if they come out of that having lost them all, which is a possibility, I mean, well, Frank will probably be gone after that if that was the case. Could they scratch themselves together? Because if they do lose their next 4 games, it's very likely they will be in the bottom 3. And that is the one I'm keeping my eye on. Because you mentioned they do have the talent, but they do have a lot of injuries. Are players buying in? I think even though we said earlier about the Forest players, are they buying into the Dyche's way of playing? I don't think I'm seeing players throwing in the towel per se. I think it's just a frustration. They're going to have a drive. I want to play better. I want us to play a bit better. I could see some Spurs players just actually throwing in the towel a bit and saying, I just don't like this. I don't fancy this at all. And I want to get out if I can type mentality. I don't think the Forest players are like that as it stands. And that's why it's a long-winded way of saying still believe you'll be in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, you can question whether they buy into the tactics, but they do buy into the game plans to scrap and battle and get a point via Arsenal and keep a clean sheet v Brentford. Maybe a bit of element of luck in that clean sheet, but they played well on the day, I thought, and thought we did enough to win with 2 really good goals. Temps, final words for you? Anything you want to add before we go?
I agree with Seb. I don't think we're relegation threatened as long as we remain far. What's the word? What's the opposite of complacent, Matt?
Diligent. Yeah,
as long as we remain diligent, stick to task, prioritize the Premier League. Frankly, I think that is absolutely the right thing to do. Even as we get towards the business end of the Europa League, Premier League is bread and butter. We have to preserve that status. We'll regret any decision which weakens a Premier League starting 11. There's going to be movement before the transfer window slams shut, and I think that will be positive. I think we'll add firepower, as you described, maybe some depth and some trade amongst the fringe players. This run of 3 games in the Premier League is absolutely crucial for us and gives us a golden opportunity to ease clear of the bottom 3.
Yeah, that's the thing. Keep them at arm's length, drag a couple of teams in. If we can win 2 out of the next 3, that would be so massive. If we do lose the next 3, then we're back to where we were a couple of weeks ago in absolute panic. Maybe after we did that Villa game, I can't remember. I don't know. When's your next Forest game, Seb?
Leeds.
Oh, that's a big game. Yeah. Not quite as big as it might have been, but it feels big, yeah.
Well, no, well, you say that. I don't know. It's massive. It's going to feel similar to the West Ham one now because, the loser of that likely will just be, oh, God, we're looking over our shoulder again. But
yeah,
if you beat Palace and you beat Leeds, there's 6 points there that I don't think a lot of the teams around there are earning in that period. And then all of a sudden, you've then got 3 or 4 teams. We're discounting Wolves and Burnley the way I'm talking here, but there's 3 or 4 teams then behind you all of a sudden. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, or even beat Palace and draw with Leeds at their place. That'll be one of the games.
Be positive, Matt. Don't start.
I know.
We just get a point here. We just get a point. That is relegation form. That's. I think.
No, I just mean Leeds fans will look at that and think, right, we've got to win this game, so frustrate them and all that stuff. But there you go. Right, really interesting discussion. Thanks to chaps for firstly joining me for over an hour. We're recording this of an evening, so I appreciate that because they both got kids' duties, no doubt, at some point. If you've enjoyed this too, or avoiding them, if you've enjoyed this, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're a channel member or sign up for Patreon, you'll get early access to this and pre-recorded interviews, so it's worth a couple of quid a month for that alone, I would say. And thank you very much to everyone that is a member. 5-star reviews on Apple or Spotify would be lovely. Thanks to Seb, thanks to Thames. They do have to go back to their kids now. I have to go back to my kids as well. So if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.